Well, good afternoon and welcome to another installment of our ongoing nonprofit leadership and engagement education series. I am Joanne Nazer, Manager of Nonprofit Leadership and Engagement at the Washington County Community Foundation. Thank you for joining us today to learn from our content experts on email services. This session is being recorded and will be posted along with a slide deck to the WCCF website. During the presentation, we ask that you be mindful of others and keep yourself muted. This will reduce background noise during the live session as well as the recording. If you have any questions during the presentation, you may enter those in the chat. Time permitting, we will also have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Follow-up questions after today's session may be emailed to the foundation at allocations@wccf.net. Our content experts for today's session are none other than staff members at the Washington County Community Foundation. First speaking will be Alicia Walls. She will share the foundation's experience with you on using a service for email marketing. The foundation uses Constant Contact, but there are several options for nonprofits. It seems like some of the organizations on this session use MailChimp as well. Alicia will focus on messaging, content, and frequency. It is my great pleasure to introduce Alicia.
Thanks, Joanne. You have such a lovely, calm voice.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very relaxing to get us started on today's session. So just to jump right in, we want to talk a little bit about the things that you're going to learn. Thanks to everyone who submitted some questions during the registration process. There were a lot of similarities actually in some of your questions and your topics that you wanted to cover. And I think in some way we will address them all, but as Joanne said, if not, please feel free to direct questions in the chat or catch them in the Q&A. So just overview, why use email marketing? What's the purpose of the message? What type of email messages should we think about? What should be the key elements of our message? Can we develop an impactful design? How do we develop an effective strategy? Some of the challenges, we can all learn from each other. So that's going to be a particularly interesting segment. And then the 5 T's of email marketing will wrap us up. So Megan, if you could advance the next slide. So I know some of you on this call are already using email marketing. Some of you are still new to this concept or want to try. And I know, again, we see people using a variety of different programs, but the fact that you're here is great because you understand that there's a benefit to this tool. And these are some of the reasons why email marketing has really grown in popularity over the years. Email marketing has been around for a while, and like many things that are technology-based, sometimes they become passé, right? Email marketing, that is not true. Email marketing is continuing to grow. Email marketing remains popular and relevant. And there are numerous instances and studies, you can just Google online if you do your own research, that says that it's becoming even more critical as part of a multi-tiered or multi-strategy marketing campaign. One of the reasons why we love it so much here at the foundation is because it's fast. If you need to get a message out and you want to get a response quickly, or you need to put something together quickly, you can do it literally in a matter of minutes. And Megan's going to demonstrate for you just how fast it can be in just a couple of minutes. It's also really easy. I think sometimes people who aren't familiar with some of the email marketing softwares maybe feel a little intimidated, or they think, oh, there's no way I can put that together. You absolutely can. They've made these programs very user-friendly. If you can put together a Word document, you can create a custom email for your organization. So don't be deterred. They've really taken a lot of, some of the more sophisticated programming technologies and put them all behind the scenes. All you do is have to work on the content of your message and its presentation. As I mentioned just a little bit earlier, email marketing is very effective. There are studies that say that people like to get email messages if the recipients of emails want them and they like what they're seeing. They're going to continue to open them. They're going to continue to be engaged. They're going to click through. They're going to learn about your organization. They're going to share. So it's a really great way to kind of keep in communication with people that are most interested in your organization. Email marketing is extremely inexpensive. I'm sure if you already are a subscriber to an email software program, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, we're going to talk some more about what the costs are and how they break down. Typically, it's by the number of email accounts that you have registered is your constituent group, your distribution group. But the costs are amazing. I just ran some numbers this morning of the foundation's own expenses when it comes to marketing. And, many of us are very much accustomed to, print solicitations, print campaigns, and they're important, especially, within our geography, within our area. People still like print, people still like mail. So you're always going to have donors who still like that. And that's good. But there's a cost to that. And so at the Community Foundation last year, we did 4 mailings. We did 2 newsletters. We did an annual report, and we did our grant report. Some of you may have seen or received these publications. Additionally, we did 1 mailed solicitation that was a self-mailer. For those 5 mailings, we spent somewhere in the neighborhood of just over $7,000 to print, seal, address, and mail. Okay, $7,000. That could be a lot. Our email subscription service to Constant Contact for the whole year cost us just over $1,600. Okay. And now we have lots of email addresses, 10,000 plus. So we're paying more because we have more contacts in our database. But with that $1,600, we issued 47 email messages. Some were e-blasts. The bulk of them were e-blasts. Some of them were our e-newsletter. So you can see the difference just there in being able to do 47 different messages, targeted, specific, engaging, versus doing that mail. We still need that print. It's still important, but we've been able to really cut back and better strategize who gets those print messages and then really send our email messages out to everybody because it is so inexpensive. So finally, measurable outcomes is the last thing why people really have been gravitating towards email marketing. Is there anything more frustrating than sending out a mail piece and not knowing if someone got it, if somebody read it, if somebody loved it, if somebody hated it? Sometimes you'll hear and you'll get feedback, but more often than not, it's a mystery, right? And you continue to do it because it works, and you continue to do it because there are things happening behind the scenes. But in this instant gratification world, is there anything more satisfying than sending out an email message and seeing how many people open it, seeing how many people click through, seeing those results instantaneously? So that's really the difference. Is you have a lot more information to work with, a lot more data to work with, and from there, you can do better decision making, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. But when you're seeing success, when you're seeing results, where you're not seeing results, you can easily adjust. And that's another reason why email marketing can be really successful, because you can tailor it very specifically to send certain messages to certain groups and get the results that you want. Megan, can you move to the next slide, please? Okay, so let's say we're starting an email campaign. And the first thing you need to determine is, what do you want to do? What's the purpose of this message? And we have found it kind of falls into one of 3 columns. You want to share information, good news, something's happening, a program, whatever the case may be. It's more information based. There's a call to action. You want someone to make a gift, give now, become a volunteer. There's a very specific outcome that you want to see from that message, and that's your call to action. And then the third option is a little bit of both. So if you have something like an email newsletter, you could have a combination of things. Maybe you'll get a Giving Matters from the Community Foundation. It talks about a recent grant. There's a call to action to see photos from one of our honoree award receptions, or to register for training, right? So there's a combination of things in that message. Megan, go ahead if you want to go to the next slide. So then from there, you decide what you want to do. Okay, I want to create this message. I want to have this very specific outcome. Who is going to see that message? And this is where email marketing can get very sophisticated and tailored and targeted, because you want to look at your audience. So if a message is to the general public, the way you approach it could be very different than if that message is specific to your donors, or that message is specific to your clients and the people you serve. The Community Foundation has 3 different e-newsletters that we send out on a rotating basis. Our Giving Matters, which I know all of you receive, goes to everyone in our email database. And it's more, general information about what's going on at the foundation that could appeal to different people for different reasons. Then we have a more targeted publication called Charity Matters, which is specific to our charities and nonprofits. Again, you would fall in that group. So the messages are more about these training opportunities, registering for the Day of Giving, registering for other things, applying for a grant. So there are things that are specific to that audience group, but maybe aren't specific to everyone else, right? If you're just someone who is a member of the community and likes to know what's going on, you may not necessarily need to know about a grant opportunity. You just like hearing about the foundation's good work. So you can figure out, what person should be on which list when you're developing your audience and you're working to customize your content to align with those audiences. It's not always one size fits all. And sometimes as you're starting, if you're on the beginning end of starting your e-newsletter, you might want to start with more generic messages and then put things in those messages that help you figure out where people fall. We have a lot of individuals in our database that sometimes fall into multiple groups. Our trustees are a great example, right? Because they're, for us, our volunteers. They're also part of the general group. They're also donors to our organization. They're also professional advisors sometimes. So, don't be surprised if you have a contact sometimes that can be in multiple groups. And sometimes don't be surprised if you have a contact if you're not sure. But over time, as you test and you send messages and you see where they might respond or what they might open, you might be able to then figure out a niche that's a good fit for them. Megan, next slide, please. Oh, could you go back one more? There we go. Okay, so what types of email messages? So again, we talked about kind of what is the objective, what's the outcome, what are these things we want to accomplish? And then from there, you can decide what you want to send, what kind of campaign do you want? An e-publication is like an electronic newsletter. So think of it as something that's a little bit more content rich. There's more information. There might be multiple things in a single publication. I think a good test as to whether or not you're putting together an e-blast or an e-publication is your scroll. If you've got a scroll, it's likely you're looking at something that's more of an e-newsletter territory. If it's a message that's a standalone and you probably can look at it and see everything you want to do, and that call to action's there or that key message is there, I think of those more as an e-blast. And, we use e-blast for a number of different things. So like registering for these types of seminars, that's an e-blast. Invitations to events, that's an e-blast. Notification about a deadline, that's an e-blast. Those are short messages, they're succinct to the point, and they're typically standalone. There's just one piece of information there. Where our e-publications, like I said, are a little bit more complex or dynamic. There's different components to them. And they typically have, a mix of that call to action and informational piece. All right, next slide, Megan. All right. And then, so finally you get the pieces together. You know what you want to do, you know who you want to talk to, you know how you want to do it. And then you've got to build your strategy. And I know one of the things that came up in the questions, I know, was about frequency, right? We had a lot of questions about how often do we send them? What works, what doesn't work? And I think as you're starting out or as you're working to build, your email program, a little experimentation is necessary, right? Because you got to see what your audience likes. You might have certain groups that like to hear from you more. I think a great example is our libraries. We get a lot of emails from our libraries and they do great programs and they have programs happening on a weekly basis. So in that instance, if you're the library and you're sending out emails and you have all these programs, weekly might be okay. People might like to see what's coming up on the horizon. Whereas for another organization, weekly might be too much. Like that's you're getting inundated. It's a lot of the same information. People maybe aren't opening it as much. So you kind of have to get a feel for what works for your groups and for what specific audience you're trying to communicate with. I think a good rule of thumb as you're getting started is try to do, one thing a month or alternate a month, have an e-newsletter one month and maybe an e-blast. Sometimes they're situational. So you might in some months have 2 e-blasts, maybe something really exciting happens and you need to make that announcement. You want everyone to know. You can deviate from that formula a little bit, but usually that's a good pace to get started. And then, as I said, as you start to do some breakout groups, or maybe you widen your publications offerings, then you can start to figure out a frequency schedule that works and what works for you. And some things too you want to consider is, what can you handle? We're very fortunate. We have a growing staff. We have a growing marketing team, so we can do more publications. We can do more e-blasts and messages. But if you're one person, or you're trying to juggle, or, it's a little bit more difficult, trying to get a weekly email out or a monthly email out could be a challenge. So, try to figure out too what works for you. And then you could recruit, find someone to help you. Megan's going to talk a little bit about templates here in just a minute. And templates are a great way, if you do need to get some reinforcements to kind of help you maintain your brand, and still get that frequency out that's important, for your constituents. The other thing we would highly recommend is aligning your strategy with your other marketing initiatives. So if you don't do this already, you should certainly create a content calendar, an editorial calendar for your year. Or if you don't have one yet, you could start it for the second half of the year, whatever works for you, and really break out, when do we send print mailings? When do we want to pepper in emails in between? Because you want to create a frequency cycle from all of your marketing initiatives that overlaps, that aligns, right? You get those messages and you're reinforcing the message. So you want to have a schedule where, you don't want to load everything all in 1 month and then have no one hear from you for the next 3, right? You want to spread it out. So there's a little bit of that information always in one channel or another. So you want to dovetail what you have going on with your print, along with your emails, and then also your social media. If you don't know where to start, or you're not sure, you can develop a content calendar using templates online. Just Google content calendar. There's a lot of free resources out there. We've built our own here. It works for us. You can build one for yourself that works for you. It just kind of, again, depends on what your organization is, what your needs are, and who's working on these things and what works best for them. So that's all that I have for right now, Joanne.
Well, thanks so much, Alicia. You provided some great information and very practical, and for the nonprofits present to get a good understanding of the basics. Next speaking will be Megan Fabianic, content creator for the foundation. She will walk you through how to develop an impactful e-blast design using Constant Contact, but these tips can still be applied to other mailing services. She will prepare an actual email blast during the session. She'll also focus on the mechanics and targeting of creating an e-blast. Megan will discuss the importance of color, photos, powerful imagery, and ease of reading the paragraphs. Welcome, Megan.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Joanne, for the introduction. So to get started, I'm just going to pull up Constant Contact real quick. It's probably going to make me log in again. No, okay. So I'm going to be using this e-blast to show everyone an example. Like Alicia just mentioned a little bit earlier, you want to align your email strategy with your other marketing initiatives. So we just started pushing the Brownlee House's 175th birthday open house today. Just posted that on social media this morning. So it makes sense that we would have this e-blast aligned with that. And we also pushed out a news release. So, everything all goes together like that to reach as many people as we can. So firstly, we're just going to go over like the key parts of your message and what you definitely need to have in there. So the subject line is going to be the first thing you want to focus on. So to do that, we go into the email settings, and it's going to be right here. I'm assuming other email services are very similar to this, and like all my tips can be like easily applied to those as well. This is just what we use at the foundation, and it's worked for us. But so here we have our subject and pre-header. This is what people are going to see in their inboxes that will either prompt them to open the email or to ignore it. So you want it to catch people's attention, but not have it be too clickbaity or too exaggerated that they ignore it. So we just have help us celebrate the Brownlee House open house on Thursday, August 24th from 5 to 7 p.m. The subject and the pre-header gives you just enough information to know what's going on, but you need to click it to open it to find out a little bit more. So I'll just save that. And then, so for the main content of your email, you're definitely going to want to have some kind of pre-header or masthead at the top here. You can either do that by just clicking text and dragging it over as a title, or you can get a little bit fancier with it like we did here. This whole image right here was made in Canva just so we could get like a little bit more detail in there with the border and the image and the text all connected, because sometimes Constant Contact is a little bit limited in what you can in your design capabilities. So you can always go over to Canva, make something and upload it into here. And you always want to keep that short and sweet also. Just celebrate with us 175th birthday open house. You don't want to have too much information at the top there. And then for the main message, your body text, you also want to keep that short and to the point, because if it's too long, people probably won't read it. Just like a little opening sentence. And then for this, since it is an invitation to an event, you want to make sure the date and the location are easily seen. So we have it in bold and italics because that's like a crucial part of this message. You also want to make sure your contact info is in there somewhere. Since this is an invitation, we're asking people to RSVP. We have like a spot specifically for that right here. We're asking people to email us back or by completing this form using a button. Buttons are great. We use them a lot for registrations and any type of call to action. Like down below here, we have this call to action where we're prompting people to visit our website where they can read more about the Brownlee House through an article. Buttons are very simple. You can just go over to the building, click button, and then type in whatever you wanted to say and insert your link by just copying and pasting. You can also enable click segmentation, and that just helps you send more targeted emails to people, like knowing who clicks on the link. And then again, we have our further contact information down here. You always want to have a picture of your logo at the bottom so people know who it's from. Like here you can kind of tell, but you definitely want to have your logo at the bottom. And you can also add your website link to an image such as your logo. So we always do that just so people have another way to get to our main site. And we also always include our social media down at the bottom. And each of these little images is linked as well. So yeah, after you have the basis of all your information and your messaging down, it's time to focus on making it look nice and cohesive, because your organization's brand gives you an identity and it makes you memorable. So it's important that you focus on putting some time into this. The basics of your organization's brand include your logo, positioning, slogan, color palette, and font. As you can see down here, our logo and positioning statement are like all in the same thing. So that makes it easy for us. But for this specific marketing campaign, the 175th anniversary, we developed its own color palette for that. So that's the green, blue, and gold colors you see throughout. And we also paid attention to certain decorative elements that align with the time period of when the house was first built in 1848 and applied it into our logo and all of the design elements you see. And these will all stay consistent across all marketing initiatives for this event. So social media, publications, newsletters, everything like that. So this is just a little advanced tip. If you know your organization's hex code colors for like your logo and brand, you can import that into the system because it only gives you like a few basic colors to choose from. So how I got the blue and green in here was by going to advanced and then typing in the hex code numbers here, which I got off of Canva. But if you aren't sure like what color your logo is, there are tons of free hex code generator websites where you can just upload that logo and it'll give you the hex code number, and then you can save that and use it everywhere, which is very helpful for branding stuff. So other things to consider when designing are using powerful images. This is a very nice picture we have of our house that we've been using for this whole campaign. You want to make sure you're not using like blurry pictures or old out of date pictures. Sometimes stock photos work if you don't have anything. Another thing you want to make sure is that it looks good on your desktop and also on a mobile phone, because these days a lot of people are checking emails on their phone. On Constant Contact, it lets you see a preview of desktop and mobile, which is helpful. So you can see how the desktop looks here. That's how it'll appear in people's inboxes. And then mobile, this is how it'll appear on a phone. And sometimes it does mess up the layout a little bit. This one's not too bad. The only thing I see is this that looks a little bit off. But for the most part, it's pretty parallel to how the desktop looks. So that's just something to consider when you're like making your final edits to your eBlast. But yeah, that's pretty much how you do all of that right here. I just went over a couple things. If anyone has like further specific questions on how to do like anything else on here, we can maybe go over that at the end in the Q&A session, or I'm always available by email to help you out. But hopefully this helped, whether you're a beginner at Email Blast or if you're a bit of a professional, you learned something new. It's always a good idea to have a template on deck if you're in a rush. It just makes things more efficient. So yeah, that's all from me. I'll get the screen back up to the PowerPoint.
Thank you, Megan. I think you did a great job and,
Yeah.
Very practical. So we appreciate it very much. Was there other things you wanted to share, or we're moving
just
on?
getting caught up on the slides. Okay,
Okay.
Here we are.
Okay, well, Emmeline Ferguson, or Em, our database manager, will discuss the role of IT in making sure the use of an email service is beneficial. Em has been working with Constant Contact for several years now and can talk about the difficulty of the integration process and the management of database entries. It is not a one and done deal. We encourage you all to learn from the Foundation's mistakes. Welcome, Em.
Hi, thank you, Joanne. So yes, we did want to take this time to talk about some of the challenges we've experienced with our email marketing strategy that has impacted our effectiveness of communications overall. So last August, we hired an outside IT support company, which added increased security to all of our features of all of our systems. And shortly after doing so, we did notice a dramatic decrease in our Constant Contact open rate for our emails that we were sending out. They were either no longer landing in inboxes of our contacts, or they were going directly to spam, and we were having a really hard time with our communication. So we reached out to our IT company and to Constant Contact to get to the root of the issue. Our instincts told us that our new security features were probably playing a part in our new issue with having a record or something in place that was coding everything as spam from us. However, our initial responses from our IT company stated it would not be caused by anything that they had put in place, but rather the individual security settings of our contacts, as overall, email security has definitely increased. From Constant Contact, they recommended that we take a good look at our database and we make sure that we're only emailing active contacts, and that should cut down on the rate going to spam. So this is where we kind of, had a bit of a bump in the road. We did not follow up. So we did do our initial cleanup of the database, but we were still having issues. We still were not seeing our rates increase. So after several months of still, like I said, no improvement, we did follow back up with our IT company, at which point, after several more conversations, it did result in the fact that we did need to have a record put in place to make sure that our emails were being sent from a secure domain, which is our wccf.net domain. And once that happened, our IT company was able to put that in place for us, and we immediately saw improvements. We immediately saw the open rates increase, the click rates increase, and we were getting less contacts telling us that they were not receiving our communications. So while this was ultimately negative and for several months did impact our communication efforts, there was, a positive side to it in that it did take us down the route of like, we really needed to seriously review our database and make sure that we had unsubscribed contacts that were no longer active. A lot of people change emails very frequently. And so you don't want to be maintaining an email address that is no longer being monitored. So like I said, there was a positive side to us of our cleanup of our database. So with all of that, like the highlights here are, you should always trust your instincts. If you think that there's an issue with anything in your account, anything suspicious, anything not being productive in your system, it's definitely good to follow up with all parties involved. In this case, it was our IT company and Constant Contact, and we got both of their input. And you always want to follow up with those parties that are involved until a satisfactory resolution has been reached. We needed to continue those conversations until we all understood what needed to happen and were able to make that happen. And then our final bullet point here is just that regular maintenance, which we will get into a little bit later as well. But just really making sure that, like I said, you are emailing active contacts, people that are going to be engaged with the content that you're sending out. So, okay, Megan, if you'd like to advance the slide. And so with that maintenance comes the, this goes in line with that last bullet point of the list maintenance, because we want to recommend to each of you to track your performance metrics and adjust as necessary. Whenever you send down an e-blast or an e-publication, the system will automatically give you a result, a statistics result of people that have opened it, which is going to be your open rate. So how many of the emails actually opened the email, how many people clicked through the links that are provided in your email, and how many people chose to opt out at this publication. So those are going to be anybody that are stating that they no longer would like to receive publications from your communication efforts. And at this point, you do want to be making sure that you're monitoring that, because once they opt out, if it's a mistake, you can reach out to them and make sure that, did they mean to do that? Was it by accident? Did they just bump it? But if they do choose to opt out, you will want to make sure that you have that recorded and that they're unsubscribed, so that you're not continuing to message them. So, and depending on the company that you use, MailChimp, Constant Contact, that report may look a little bit different, but all of that data is going to be good and useful to you. So you're going to make sure that you're monitoring all of it. And our final slide here is this pricing comparison. From the questions that you guys answered in the survey before registration, it seemed like majority of this group either used MailChimp or Constant Contact. So as you can see here, we've included the pricing breakdown. They both are based on the number of contacts that you have in your system. So once again, that ties directly back into that list maintenance. You're going to be paying for those emails that are still subscribed. And so if they're emails that are no longer active, they're bouncing, nobody's monitoring the accounts, you don't want to be paying for that email if you don't need to be. So as you can see here, the pricing is very similar with the breakdown of contacts and the monthly fee. Constant Contact is a little bit more per month, but like I said, you'd want to make sure you're on their websites and comparing what each one has to offer to make sure that you're getting the best fit for your organization. The prices that you guys see here are for the standard plans. But most of these organizations offer a light version, a standard version, and a premium version. So once again, they allow you to do a comparison on their page to say, here's what you're going to get with each service, and to make sure that you're getting the one that works best for your organization. And so we did also want to highlight here with those contacts, like I said, because you're going to want to be unsubscribing anybody that is no longer active. And the best practice is to always unsubscribe rather than delete, because you will want to maintain that record of them having opted out or no longer being active. Whereas if you delete, you have the chance to in the future, re-add them to the system, which, is not good because you'd be adding a contact that's not necessary. So we do always stress, unsubscribing rather than deleting, just to maintain that number of contacts is something that is manageable for your organization. So I think that's all that I have. So I'll pass it back to Joanne.
Thanks so much, Em. You did a great job uncovering some of the challenges that occur for email marketing. And I just wanted to say, yes, and we had some hiccups, let's say, for our recent Constant Contact that some people we knew didn't want to really unsubscribe, but the system did that to them and to reach out regarding that. Em, did you want to talk more about the bounces? Like I know sometimes they talk about they're either on vacation or
Yes.
there's other categories. I'm not sure what that's like for MailChimp, but
yes, I was gonna say, so in that report that it gives you about the statistics of the eBlast, it will give you a section called Bounce Back. And those ones normally will have a code beside them. So, as you're getting those bounce back reports, you can be going through it. And if it's, a bounce back, it's suspicious, it's blocked, they've opted out, those ones can always be unsubscribed. But you do want to take into account, like Joanne said, you may want to reach out to some if it seems like an odd person to have opted out of your emails, they've regularly been engaged. That might be a time you want to reach out. It will tell you if it's an auto reply or a vacation notification. So the email was sent, but the system got something back. So those are not ones that you'd want to remove right away because, if they're just on vacation for a week, when they come back, they're going to want your emails again. So it's good to be monitoring the report, not necessarily just removing everybody, but looking at it on an individual basis to say, what's the situation with this email and how should it be treated?
thanks so much, Em, for that further explanation. Appreciate it. So we covered a lot of material this afternoon rather quickly, but we just wanted to say the 5 T's of marketing. And the first one is tease, target, teach, test, and track. It's, as we've talked about, it's not a one and done. It's a learning process, it's a journey. We think this is a great tool in terms of marketing your organization, but it will take some research on your part to find out what works for your organization. One of the questions that we did get in the chat was, how do we convert snail mail people into email? Alicia, do you want to handle that question?
Sure. So I think it depends sometimes on who the recipient is. Like I said earlier, in some cases, you're going to have tried and true snail mail people and they're happy where they are. Those are not the people to focus these energies on, because that what you're doing works. So stick with that. I think it's the people who are kind of in the middle, or people who use email, people who are online, active on social media. If they're following you on Facebook, chances are they have an email address that they use. So I think it's trying to kind of identify the people within your own constituent base as to who the most likely prospects are, and then trying to get emails from them. You could go about it a lot of different ways and to get that information. And sometimes it might take some overlap. If you do a print publication or you have an event, you might want to encourage people to share their emails. QR codes are great. We've started to use more of those in our own marketing activities. So try to find ways to encourage people to give their email address to you. You could have a promo, host a giveaway, all of those types of things. And then, see who comes to the well, see who signs up. And then that's a great way to start. And then from there, again, like Em said, it's a lot about maintenance. Add it to your forms. If you have like a giving form, let's say you do an annual appeal, there's a remittance envelope or a form with that. Do you ask for email address? If you don't, add it in. People tend to give it. During the day of giving, it's on our form. And so on those donor lists, you'll be able to get the email addresses for those donors. You can add those into your system. So look for just different opportunities to get the email information from the people you'd most like to communicate with. And then like we said, continue to maintain it and continue that correspondence so that you know those emails are still good.
Great answer, Alicia. Thank you. And so another question is, how often do you check your list and look and review it? Em, can you address that?
Yes, so anytime that we're preparing a publication, we do review the list, make sure that we have our contacts on it, that we know, make sure we didn't need to add anybody new to the list. And then as soon as you send that e-blast out is when I recommend that you go through and start to do the maintenance. So it may take, you get your initial report back immediately. You may want to monitor it over the next couple of days to see down the road, did more people open it, you'll know your bounce backs immediately. But in terms of your engagement, have more people opened it, you can continue to be monitoring that. But I would say, as you're getting ready to do an e-blast, make sure that you have your list prepared and that you don't have any new additions. And then immediately after, start to look for those names that perhaps, are time to remove.
Great answer. And I think with Constant Contact, you send out the email. Then if somebody hasn't opened it, a reminder email can also be sent out a couple of days later. Is that correct, Em? I'm not sure about MailChimp.
Yes. I was going to say, I believe that is correct. So you can send a reminder, to those emails to make sure, did they not get it? Or are they going to open it now?
Right. So right now we're still opening for question and answers. If anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a specific question or put something in the chat, we'll give you a minute. Well, it's a Tuesday afternoon and we must have covered everything so thoroughly, but I appreciate my team members and I thank them for their time and their insight. The next session in our Nonprofit Leadership and Engagement series will be Tuesday, October 10th, and will focus on nonprofit employers, nonprofits as employers. Look for a registration e-blast in the coming weeks. If you have any suggestions for an upcoming topic for this sessions, please feel free to reach out to the foundation by email at allocations@wccf.net or by calling the foundation office at 724-222-6330. Megan just put up all our emails and our names, and you can reach out to any of us specifically. Today, the capacity building grant cycle has just opened on the WCCF website. Feel free to review the information under grant seekers and let us know if you have any questions or comments about that. That's an exciting opportunity for some nonprofits. Thanks again for participating in this session today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.